Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hello participants, Namaste to all of you. Myself Mukesh Kumar Mishra, working as Library Officer in a Space Application Center of ISRO in Ahmedabad. I thank UGC Human Resource Development Center of Gujarat University for giving me this opportunity to connect with you and deliver my session on enhancement for technological applications in the library. I thank Professor Dr. Jagdish Joshi, Director of UGC HRDC Center of Gujarat University, for conceptualizing this kind of online refresher course, and not only conceptualizing, but implementing it in a very successful manner. I hope that you all will be benefited from his endeavors and efforts. I would also like to thank Professor Dr. Atul Bhatt of Department of Library and Information Science, Gujarat University, and Dr. Yogesh Parikh of Gujarat University Library for inviting me as a resource person to interact with you. So, as you all know, as I have already told, that my topic of today's talk is enhancement for technological application in the library. So, let me start sharing my PPTs. So, before so as we all know, the easy and almost universal availability of access devices like mobile phones, tablets, laptops, PCs, and affordable data charges had already affected information seeking behavior and use behavior of library patrons in a weekday. Our all library patrons, our all readers almost have access to either one or two or many, maybe having all these things, whatever I have written, mobile phones, tablets, laptops, PCs, and they want their library to be connected with all those devices. And what library did? So responding to the patterns increased likeness, a likening of online, on the go, and remote access to information resources and services on their own devices, libraries was already moving in the direction from physical to electronic or digital libraries. So responding to their need, their demand, libraries were already moving from physical to electronic or digital direction. But what happened in the present scenario of whatever we are facing, the word remote access or online access have assumed a different dimension. I'm not saying here meaning, but I'm written about dimension because it was already there. We are providing a remote access to our whatever library resources were there. We are providing uh, access to the our online resources also, but dimension was not like that. People were still coming to the library. They were still referring to the physical resources. They were still reading the physical journals and books. But during all this last 4 to 5 or 6 months, what happened? Our physical premises or campuses were closed. So now those who were coming to the library, they were also forced to access library remotely or online. So we can say if it was a matter of choice between physical or online access to the information resources before present situation, now it has become compulsion to refer to online resources. So So, what are those technological applications in library? With the libraries has already acquired or in process of requiring or in-house developing and managing different applications, tools, and information delivery platforms to meet out user expectations. We are developing a lot of applications. There is a lot of talk about different kind of technologies or technological applications being adopted by libraries. So like for library housekeeping operations, like acquisition, circulation, serial management, and OPAC, libraries are already acquired and got customized library management software like Slim, Sol, Lipsys, Koha, either on Windows or Linux platform. So this is the first and foremost technological application with which libraries began, and now it's almost 30, 40-year-old technological application in almost each and every library. So, but after that, what we needed one repository software to manage different born digital and digitized content. Repositories in DSpace, open source software, or Greenstone, or Fedora, or maybe some commercial or proprietary softwares. So these are the two very basic technological applications which I think that almost by now almost every library must be having. So these are there. Then what happened when these two are in place? Then we needed a single point access to all these different applications. You may be having some more applications, some more image server, map server, or something. So to provide an integrated approach to all these applications. So what we needed, one user interface. So we started developing our library websites to provide single point access to all these different technological applications running on different machines, orchestrations, servers, and libraries developed and hosted either HTML based or CMS based like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal based interactive web portals. Some of the libraries which have got a large data pool or something to store in a big way, they acquired a separate network attached storage or later on storage area network or any other kind of data storage server. So by all these, I want to say that there are a lot of technological applications already in place in the libraries. So whether it be a ILMS, whether it be a digital repository software or server, whether it be your website, or maybe storage or NAS or SAN. So these are the basic ones, means which I suppose that almost every library must be having all those. And if they are not having in library premises, they must be supported by either say their own data center or computer center, or maybe some of the newer libraries have got support from cloud service providers for all these technological applications. So, so this is the typical architecture. What we call virtualization is the technique that I'm going to talk about later on. But this is the typical architecture of servers. Whatever servers, whatever applications you have got in library, they are typically arranged in this manner. There is an ILMS server, integrated library management server, running your Koha, Slim, Sol, whatever software you are using, it's running on a separate server. Then there is a repository server, a DSpace server, or a Greenstone, or a Fedora, or whatever, VTLS, whatever you are using. So there must be a repository server. If you are a big working in a big library or you are handling a big setup, there was a concept of having parallel or backup servers also. So you may or may not be having a few parallel or backup servers. Then there is a NAS or SAN, or earlier there were CD mirror servers. So all those things connected with a library website through your own LAN, or if you are on internet, through internet. So whatever architecture you are facing, you are having 3, 4 different kind of machines running different kind of OS and applications connected through either your own intranet, that is, or LAN, or through internet. And you are providing access to all those servers through a library website to user. So library website becomes your tool of delivery. So this is a typical architecture, means that is most of the libraries are having, the libraries who are having their own servers in the library. Otherwise, if this thing is in your data center or your computer center is supporting all in all those activities, so they must have something different. But typically, a library in academic setup or in even in research setup also at a few places, they were having their server infrastructure typically arranged in this way. So what enhancement we can do over this infrastructure? So what is wrong or what is lacking or missing, or what you can say, what value addition you can do with this infrastructure? There is nothing wrong with this infrastructure. It is working fine and it is quite uh, useful, and it is serving so many libraries. But still, there are a few techniques with the help of them we can enhance the use, not only the user experience, but also we can play our part in optimizing the resources, whatever server resources, whatever network resources, whatever computing resources we are having, we can optimize those resources and work in a more efficient manner. So what are the issue? Why do we need enhancement over all these technologies? So in most of the cases, all these applications run on different OS mostly. Koha need either Linux or Ubuntu. Then your DSpace or Fedora works better with either of them, or Red Hat or Windows sometimes. So they run on different applications, run on different operating systems. They run on different physical servers. They run on different workstations or desktop machines. It depends upon which kind of institution and which kind of infrastructure you have got. And if not hosted on centralized computer center, maybe getting booted up and shut down daily. What happens if these are housed in a library, your own library premises? So they must be getting booted up daily or shut down daily or weekly or whatever be your routine. If you are not having a 24/7 kind of facility, means you are all cooling and all firefighting equipments are in place. Only in that case you can run all those machines 24/7. Otherwise, you have to get them routinely shut down and wake up. So daily it's a big task. So available only during office hours or on weekdays, whatever kind of infrastructure you must be having. So the limitation day in 2005 have written or analyzed such kind of setups. And what he concluded, so the limitation of x86 servers, whatever servers we are mostly using, to run just one operating system, an application at a time, result in libraries hosting these applications on multiple servers, workstations, or desktop machines. Because normally x86 server can run just one operating system and one good application. So what we have to do, we have to use different machines and different servers or workstations or desktop machines to run our different kind of applications. And often computing and storage capacity of these machines, and whenever we purchase, whenever we try to get a best server and our best desktop machine or best workstation, whatever is available in the market. So what happens? The storage and computing capacity of these machines remain underutilized. So we have got a good server, it have got a good computing and storage facility capacity, But what happened? Our application is using it in very limited manner. So estimates for distributed Windows-based server, what they found at that time in 2005, maybe some it have been a little better than that, but still in 2005 it was for Windows-based server average capacity of 8 to 12% only was being utilized by the applications, and mostly more than 80% of the computing and storage capacity of the server was just lying like that only. And in case of Unix server, it was 25 to 30% better than Windows-based applications, but still there was almost 70% capacity of that server or storage space being remain unutilized. So this was a just a study of 2005. Maybe things have been bettered, means because of awareness and everything. But still, there are whatever we can conclude from this is that there is a lot of scope. When we run a single application on a single machine, a lot of storage and computing capacity of that machine remains unutilized. So that machine is running in full circle. That machine is consuming all the resources, your cooling is resource, your electricity, and everything. But we are using it in just 8 to 10% of its capacity, and most of its capacity remains unutilized. So here you can see a clear space for some improvement. We can do something that we can utilize that unutilized, that uh, underutilized capacity, whether it be a storage capacity or computing capacity. What more? The more is server room floor space. Whenever we are going to put all those machines, means one server for Koha LMS, one server for DSpace, one server for your library website, one server for parallel backup, or one server for your storage devices, your CD server, your mirror server. So for all those things, you need space. So not only space, you need cooling for them because they are the machines running on daily basis, and then again being utilized. They are handling a heavy workload also. So you need networking for of them. You need cooling for all of them. If they are rack mounted, you need rack space and uninterrupted power supplies like backups, UPS, and everything. If you have got such kind of machines and infrastructure, you need all server room resources, whether it be floor space, rack space, cooling, provision of uninterrupted power supply, or everything you need. And these things are really prime real estate in words of Daniels. What Daniel call it, these are the prime real estate in computing environment. So these come with a certain price tag. These are not so cheap that you can run all the ACs 24/7. So for running all the ACs 24/7, first you have got a number of ACs, then there is a switching circuit so that no AC runs more than 8 hours or 10 hours, whatever specifications there be. So such kind of things are there. Then again, you need maintenance of all those things. Thing is not only running applications or different machine is problem. The problem or the situation is like that when you run all these applications on different kind of machines, means you have got either 4, 5, 6 physical servers putting in your library server room, and you are running all those things. You have got a big maintenance budget for all that. You should have got, means because uh, those machines are physical machines. They are bound to uh, for wear and tear. There will be either one machine shut down because of something, yeah, either heating or maybe something, and there is a aging process also. So after 5 to 6 years, 7 years of continuous working, you have to replace them. You need to replace them for the proper working of your library server infrastructure or for the continuity of all your services and resources. So in present scenario, when not supported by centralized computer center, libraries may utilize. So this is the scenario what I wanted to discuss, what I want to sketch the picture of libraries and library server room, and what I had got means either through my visits to different places or libraries. What I noticed that actually the situation is like this only. They are running different machines wherever there are PCs or workstations or servers, and they are either scattered or put in a single place, and they are being monitored by different uh, uh, maintenance contracts and everything. So library server infrastructure is quite uh, a, a point to be focused. Means there we definitely need something, definitely need some devices, and what tools, some kind of enhancement tool that so that we can improve this situation, we can better this situation. So instead of maintaining 4 5 computers and servers and everything, so if we could get something to better the situation. So in present situation, a scenario when not supported by centralized computer server, if you are being supported by a centralized computer server, they must be doing the same thing what I'm going to talk about in my next part. So if you are not being supported by all those things, you can try the same thing what computer centers and data centers are doing at their end. So in present scenario, when not supported by centralized computer center, libraries may utilize virtualization techniques as a good enhancement. So virtualization is my topic, what I am going to talk about in my next two sessions. So virtualization is a technique, so that technique can be used to better whatever scenario we have talked in last 3 4 slides. So that scenario can be bettered, can be enhanced, can be uh, tackled with the help of virtualization techniques to all above stated technological applications for remote and continuous availability of resources and services. So dear participants, uh, what we are talking, that we need some technique so that we can anyhow reduce the number of servers, one, two, three, three, and four, whatever four different servers for four basic applications. I have listed here only the basic applications what almost all libraries have got. You may be having some other servers, some other machines, some other applications also in your library. So instead of all those machines, different and individual machines connected through a LAN, if we could get something like that, so that instead of having these all 4 5 6 machines, we could have those things in one or two single machines, and our all applications without compromising the functionality, without compromising the performance, without compromising the user end experience, we can run all those applications, whether it be a library website or it be ILMS for your staff and your users, OPAC and everything, whether it be parallel servers or repository servers, whatever you have got. So without compromising on the functionalities and their uh, application, all those applications running in their whole integrity in lesser number of physical machines. I'm talking about just physical machines. I'm not saying that in the name of enhancement, you reduce some services or you remove some applications. You remove all applications with whatever best possible OS on which it run good. So what we can do? There is a technique called virtualization. So virtualization techniques can do this for us so that we can remove the number of physical machines instead of having 4 5 6 whatever, either PCs or workstations or servers, whatever we are having for different applications. and maintaining those, we can run the same applications, the same things into just one or two good servers. So that we will have to maintain only one or two server instead of 5 to 6 machines. And then again, the cooling, the rack space, the power consumption, all will be for just two servers only, not for the 6 machines, 6 different machines. So you can just visualize the savings that you are going to have with such kind of approach. So this kind of approach, this kind of service we can get through virtualization. So through virtualization, we can remove, we can lessen the number of physical machines, whatever we have got, and not only lessen whatever existing applications we have got, we could get a unlimited possibility of creating new servers and new machines in a virtualized world without adding any physical machine. So suppose in future, if you get some more application you want to develop, some more technology or something you want to do with a new server or test server, so you can just create it in your virtualized world. So you need not to go for the all approvals and purchase one more server or one more machine and then start your work. From the next day on, you can create whatever specifications, whatever RAM, whatever hard drives, whatever storage, whatever computing specifications you have got, you can create a new machine in the new in your virtualized server, and then you can start working from the next day on. So this is the benefit you are going to get if you virtualize your servers or you use virtualization techniques. So let's go into a just little theory of all those things. What is virtualization? What are the different levels? What are the different methods being used for virtualization? Just a little theory is there. In next a few slides, I would like to cover all those aspects also, because those are also important if you wish to implement such kind of technique in your library. So simply put, it's the process of creating a virtual rather than physical version of something. So instead of having a physical machine for new application or existing applications, you will get the power, you will get the facility to create a virtual machine. So virtualization is a technique or process of creating a virtual rather than physical version of something. So VMware is a good company for this. So what it writes about virtualization? Virtualization can apply to computers, operating systems, storage devices, applications, or network. Whatever you have learned or whatever you need for running all those technological applications in library, whether it be computers, whether it be OS, whether it be storage devices, whether it be applications or network, all and everything can be virtualized. So by now, mostly we are using those things in physical actual words, means n network number nodes for the n number of PCs. But with the help of virtualization, we can have just one network node and n number of machines connected to with this, and they will act just like that. They are on a separate different node. So not only network, we can virtualize computers, operating systems, storage devices, applications, everything. However, server virtualization is the heart of it. But overall, server virtualization, what we are going to implement in our this whole session, and what we need actually. So server virtualization is the heart of it. So overall, these all techniques are being used for mostly for the server virtualization. So virtualization uses software to simulate the existence of hardware and create a virtual computer system. So what happens in virtualization? In virtualization, whatever computer systems you have got, whatever servers you will get as a final product, they will not be having any physical kind of hardware. Yes, but they will act just like your own computers for physical computers. and they will just simulate the existence of hardware. They will look like that, they will behave like that, they are having their own hard disk, they are having their own RAM, they are having their own CPUs, but they won't be having any physical thing. So virtualization uses software to simulate. So what virtualization do? It just simulate. It create an experience for those machines that okay, you just feel like that you have got a hard disk and RAM or computing facility or capacity. Doing this allowed businesses to run more than one virtual system and multiple operating systems and applications on a single server. So with the help of this virtualization technique, so what big businesses and big websites and big brand names, I won't name anyone, but still they are using this technique in a big way, and they have created a lot of a number of virtual servers on a single machine. They are maintaining a single machine and multiple systems with multiple OS, with multiple kind of security, with multiple kind of access, so everything. So physically they are maintaining only a single machine, but they are running different kind of applications with different kind of their environmental needs on a single server. So this can provide economies of scale and greater efficiency. So definitely this all is going to result in a good economy and better efficiency. So that this way you can control your budget also. So what are the proper definitions? So Turban in 2008, so he gave a good definition like this. Hardware virtualization or platform virtualization refers to the creation of a virtual machine that acts like a real computer with an operating system. It acts like just a real computer with OS. Software executed on these virtual machines is separated from underlying hardware resources. So software executed on the virtual machine is separated from the underlying hardware resources. For example, a computer that is running Microsoft Windows may have a virtual machine that looks like a computer with the Ubuntu Linux operating system. यहाँ पर here is talking about type 1 virtualization. So may host a virtual machine that looks like a computer with Ubuntu Linux operating system. Ubuntu-based software can be run on the virtual machine. So what you can do, what he want to say that even if you want to run, see, we have got one more technique here. I would like to clear the difference between that is dual boot. We say na, if we want Windows and Linux both in a system, so what we can do is we can make that machine a dual boot system. But what happens with dual boot system, that only one OS works at a time. So either you can boot that machine in Windows or you can boot that machine in Linux. So you cannot run both the OS at a time. But what virtualization permits you, what it does for you, that you can run not only two, you can run n number of operating systems at a time in a single physical machine with the help of virtualization. How? We will see later on. Maybe there are what I just quoted, type 1 and type 2 virtualization. So if it is the type 1 or type 2, whatever be the type, you can have the flexibility of operating n number of operating systems, not only just two, either Linux or that Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat or whatever OS you have got, you can run n number of OSs on a single physical machine with the help of virtualization. That is what Turban want to say in its definition. There is a different definition, a second definition from Wikipedia, and it states that in hardware virtualization, the host machine is the actual machine on which the virtualization takes place, and the guest machine is a virtual machine. So Wikipedia makes it more clear that whatever physical machine, actual machine is there, we will call it host machine. That machine is, physical machine is host, and on which the virtualization take place. On host, virtualization will take place. And the guest machine is the virtual machine. And whatever other machines we will create on that machine, so they will be the guest machines and they will be virtual. There won't be any physical existence of those machines. The words host and guest are used to distinguish between the software that runs the physical machine from the software that runs on the virtual machine. The software or firmware that creates a virtual machine or the host hardware is called a hypervisor or virtual machine manager. And the software which permits virtualization, which permits to create different kind of virtual machines or guests on a host is called hypervisor. So it is a different kind of software, just like other than our OSs, whatever OSs we know, it is we know different flavors of Linux like Fedora, like CentOS, like Ubuntu or Red Hat Linux or Windows operating systems, Windows Server operating systems, whatever operating systems, full-fledged operating system we know, there is these hypervisors are a little different from them. They are the minimal kind of operating systems, and they reside on the bare metal machines. Means in such kind of machine, when we are going to do a type 2 virtualization. So what happens? Those hypervisors, they allow to or to guest machines to reside on a host machine. So these softwares are called hypervisor or virtual machine managers. Terminology may be different from one brand to another brand, from one software to another software. But basically, what happens? You get a brand new server or machine, and instead of putting any known operating system, whatever you know, Windows or any distribution of Linux, you put a hypervisor on that. So hypervisor may be either open source or a proprietary one. So you just put a hypervisor on that bare metal machine or a blank machine, and now you can make different kind of guest machines on that physical server, that physical machine, whatever you have got, and you can create different virtual servers. And those virtual servers may have any operating system, whatever you wish. If you wish it to be a Windows machine, you can put Windows operating system in that. If you want it to be a Linux machine, you can put any flavor of Linux in any machine and n number of machines. So your physical machine remains one. Then there is a hypervisor, whether it is open source or proprietary one. And after putting that hypervisor, now that host machine is ready to accept guest machines. So those machines, whatever physical servers, whatever you need to run your library technological applications, whether it be your website or your DSpace server or your ILMS server, whatever you wish to put or you run, you can run in those guest machines. So physically there is only one physical machine, that is host machine. There is one different software hypervisor, and then again you have got different guest machines as you are running in different physical servers. Now those all physical servers have been removed and they have become from physical to virtual. So this is the operation, this is the process. So what are the advantages? So virtual servers generate hardware cost saving. What happened when you removed all those machines? Those physical machines have gone along with their maintenance. So virtual servers generate hardware cost saving by allowing devices to be used to their full potential. And what happened? Now you can use that single machine, that your single host machine, to its full potential. Now And instead of using it for 70, 30, 40% of its computing and network and storage capacity, now when you will be running all your servers in a single physical machine, definitely you are going to use this physical server to its full potential or full capacity. So virtual server technology unlocks unused capacity and allow the CPU, memory, disk, and controllers to be maximized for each physical server. So you, whatever physical devices you have got, whatever physical servers you have got, they will be used to their full potential, and you can maximize the use of their CPU, their memory, their disk, their controllers, whatever you have paid for, you will be using those things in optimum state. Based on performance measurements, testing, estimates, and trial and error, any number of virtual servers can be added to a physical machine, thereby increasing server utilization. Based on performance measurement, testing, estimates, and trial and error, any number of, just after doing your own analysis, your own performance measurement, how many servers are good for you, how many, after conducting the test, oh, this speed is good, or you can share this speed with other things, other servers also. So after all those things, you can create any number of virtual servers on a guest machine, on a host machine. So any number of virtual servers can be added to a physical device, thereby increasing server utilization to sustainable level. You can increase the server utilization to a sustainable level. Means that again you have to check, you have to measure. If you have got what is the actual capacity of your host server, and you have to just measure the performance. Okay, this allowed to run these many number of guest uh, servers with this much performance or this much efficiency. So instead of purchasing expensive servers with unused or excess capacity, a new virtual machine could be created for an application. So whenever you need a new machine for any new application, or for your own existing application, suppose you wish to create a different kind of application for library, or you want to run a different software, or you want to create a different server for some other applications. So instead of going for buying a new machine every time and waiting for the machine to come and get assembled and then put to the use, so instead of doing all those things, you can create a virtual server at any time in any on any host machine. So if you have got a host machine and hypervisor there, you can create a virtual server anytime. So you need not to purchase expensive servers. And again, you purchase the expensive servers, whatever application you wanted to run, it consumes just 8 to 10% of that capacity of that server, and 80 to 90% capacity of that server remains unutilized. So instead of I won't say that wastage, but still instead of this uh, unused capacity, you can create one virtual server, one virtual machine, and you can use for your new application or your trials and whatever you wish to do. So that you can do with virtualization. So this is an advantage of virtualization. So maintenance costs are avoided on the idle server, and floor space is freed for the virtual server hosts. So what happened when you removed those physical servers? You moved all your 4, 5, 6, whatever physical servers you have got to virtual world. So what you avoided, the very first, you avoided the maintenance of all those 4, 5 machines. If you are having 6 machines, 6 different machines running 6 different applications, now you are giving maintenance for one single machine, and all other 5 machines are removed from your maintenance burden. So this way you avoided your maintenance of those 5 machines, and floor space is also freed. So now you have got better floor space. If you remove five machines, 5 CPUs, and their, if they are connected with their monitors, then their peripherals and everything, so it will take at least good space, I think. So that again, whole floor space is freed, and now you are running all those applications in a single machine. So in a single server. So it is again an advantage in favor of virtualization. A manageable growth plan can be created to add virtual servers, host servers, and related services. So after getting this setup in place, you can plan your how you are going to grow in future, how library is going to grow, how much more, how many more servers of such kind you need in future, how much data, how much traffic you are going to handle in future. So you can grow, you can just means analyze all those things and add host if you wish. If you wish that your present server is okay, but you it is whatever it is handling, 4 5 whatever virtual machine it's handling, it's okay. Now if you need more machines, I will we will purchase one more physical server and we'll create physical virtual machines on that server only. So whatever you wish, you can easily plan and growth. And what virtualization permit you, it permits you to add any number of hosts at any time. So you can add host, not only host, again guests, whatever, how many guests you want to create, and again scale up your uh, whatever installations you have got, what scale up your uh, compute and server capacity. The thing we discussed in our, so the life expectancy of server is typically 3 to 5 years. This is a scenario, you can say in developed nation, we are using our servers for more than 5 years. Definitely, practically, we are using those things. But ideally, it is being said after 3 years, wear and tear starts. So maximum even warranty or guarantee, whatever you are getting, it is up to 3 years. Maximum it is up to 3 years. After that, it goes into the maintenance. And if you want to use it for further years or further number of years, so what you have to maintain a maintenance contract, so that if there is any kind of that wear and tear and everything, so that can be covered in that maintenance contract. So life expectancy of a server is 3 to 5 years. And we'll say that it is ideal condition. We'll go for okay 5 to 7 years if you can do. When technology becomes obsolete, the data must be migrated to a new platform. This is more important than the server itself. So what happened after use of 4 to 5 years of any server or any technological applications, we have got a good number of a large number of data on that server. Maybe it may be search logs, it may be search histories, or it may be visits, or it may be your physical document or that electronic documents, everything. After using any application for 5 years, definitely you will be having a large number of important data on that server. And if suppose your physical server gets obsolete or it gets down for any reason, so and you wish to change it, so all that data, all that platform has to be migrated from old machine to new machine. So and applications must be reconfigured in new environment. So this is a big task. This is really a big task. But when your that server is virtual one, virtual machine makes those transitions easier. So if your server was virtual one, the first thing is that change of server. Either you won't require it, even if you want to upgrade its OS or something, even if you want to change the host OS, there are technologies that you can just transfer the machine as it is from one host to another host, and you can change that physical server, and you can again make that same environment and again retransfer it to its own location. So there are things like that. So definitely we'll definitely cover this aspect later on in my topic. But definitely the transition of from old machine to new machine or such kind of transitions are much easier in case of virtual servers. Commercial softwares, software like VMware offers a migration tool called P2V. There is a software, VMware provides it, VMware EXSI. So, so it offers one tool, migration tool from physical to virtual machine, which helps engineers move from legacy environment to virtual servers. So what P2V do is, if you wish that, okay, you have got this DSpace server, you want to make it a mm, uh, virtual server from physical, you want to get rid of this machine and you just want to content whole the content of this machine to a virtual server. So P2V will do what P2V will do, it will create exact the same machine. It will just mirror whole things of that physical machine into a virtual machine in a guest machine. So this tool is such a performer. So in contrast to traditional standalone systems, migrating virtual machine from one host platform to another host platform is relatively simple in terms of configuration, man hours, and resources. So you can easily think, if you wish to transfer all the data, all the applications, all the installations of physical machine into another physical machine, it will take at least a few number of man days, not hours. So you need to put OS again, you need to put all the application softwares again, you need to put the installations again, and you need to transfer the data again to the different physical machine. But the same thing, if you wish to do in virtualized world, you can copy the physical machine, the virtual machine in a Ziffy. Means it's just like copying and pasting. So you can create, you can handle those virtual machines in much easier way what you are handling in your physical worlds. So whenever you will explore all those things, means whenever you will go into the virtualization and see, so you will find that machines are actually working, means behaving like a just like a folder. You can just copy and paste. So that is the beauty of this software, and though it's a commercial software, VMware, it offers, but these tools means their equivalent tools are available in other softwares also. So virtualization can increase IT agility, flexibility, and scalability while creating significant cost saving. So what happened with this? Virtualization can increase IT agility, means the overall age of your uh, IT infrastructure. It will be more agile, so it will be more flexible. You can do anything. You can change the host anytime without disturbing your services. You can move guests from one host to another host. You can copy. You can create duplicate of that guest, uh, and you can scale up your installation at any time. If you want to add more hosts, if you want to more computing resources, if you want to more storage, you want to more processing processors, you can scale up at any time while creating significant cost saving. And instead of purchasing whole machine, a whole new server, if you purchase just a new processor or new storage hard disk and everything, and you add in your existing infrastructure, it will definitely result in a significant cost saving. So workloads get deployed faster, performance and availability increases, and operations become automated. So what happens? Your workloads get deployed faster. Whatever task at your hand you had, whatever applications you had, those will be deployed very faster. Performance and availability increases, and operations become automated, resulting in IT that is simpler to manage and less costly to own and operate. So you will have IT infrastructure that is simpler, you can manage, anyone can manage, and it will be less costly and easy to operate. So with the help of this kind of setup, virtualization setup, you can have a mm, IT infrastructure that can be handled very easily. Means you don't need to be expert of all those kind of physical machines or servers, whatever you had. You have to handle just one simple application, that is hypervisor and its interface. So what are the other advantages? Deliver high application availability. So we call it HA, or high availability. So deliver high application availability. Your applications are always available. Minimize the or eliminate downtime. That downtime is whenever your machine is in maintenance, or it has gone down because of any reason. So in case of virtual machines, that downtime can be reduced or almost eliminated. We'll see how it is being done, but you can just shift that machine from one host to another host if your one host is going to be down, and without affecting the functionality of that machine. That servers, that users won't never they will never come to know that you have shifted your application from one host to another host, and you can maintain your first host if you wish. Increase IT productivity, efficiency, agility, and responsiveness. It's quite obvious that with such kind of flexible setup, you will achieve all those things. Your productivity will definitely go high. Then efficiency and agility, responsiveness, all will increase. So speed and simplify application and resource provisioning. Speed and simplify application and resource provisioning. Whatever resources you need in future, whatever applications you want to put, new applications or old one, so they all will be speed up. Means you can deploy anything whenever you wish, and they will be you need not to purchase, or you go to the all the approval processes and purchase the servers and everything. So all those resource provisioning will be at your disposal. Support businesses, community, and disaster recovery. That is quite simple. Means you can create such kind of virtual machines, any number of virtual machine, and even parallel servers and backup servers in that virtual environment, or even you can save the state of that machine somewhere else and you can use it. So in case of disaster, so enable centralized management. There will be a single centralized window, or single centralized interface from which you can manage all those servers at a time. Means instead of going to the different interfaces of different physical machines and again checking whether it is running or not running, what is good or bad with that, you can do all those things in a single centralized management, and it is a means a good time saving for a IT manager or whatever, whoever looks after all those servers. Builds a true software defined data center. So with the help of virtualization, you can create a true software defined data center, a software that defines your data handling in your library and everything. So maybe you won't need to go to that far, means you need not to be create a data center as such, but still you can run your library applications in a data center way. So that is the advantage that you are going to achieve with the help of application of virtualization. So these are the advantages. Now, just to get familiar with the common terminologies, whenever you will start practically doing the virtualization or using this technique in your server installations. So there are a few words you will come across regularly. So I would like to just a little focus on those terms. So what are the different approaches to virtualization? Whenever you will start doing virtualization of your server, so there are two basic approaches of virtualization. One is host-based versus hypervisor. So we call them type 1 or type 2 kind of virtualization also. So virtualization can be implemented using type 1 or type 2 hypervisors architectures. A type 1 hypervisor, commonly referred to as host-based virtualization, requires an OS such as Microsoft Windows 10 to host a guest operating system like Linux or even other version of Windows. Some of you must have experienced this also with the help of virtual machines, VMs. What we in some kind of workshops and training sessions, we normally use such kind of type 1 or host-based virtualization, where we put that VirtualBox software to you, or whatever installations being taught in that training session or workshop session, they are installed in that virtual box setup only, and your own setup, your own laptop remains as it is. So that type 1 hypervisor or type 1 kind of virtualization is like that. You have already got a machine, a server, and there is a operating system on it, whether it be in Microsoft Windows 10, 7 or 8, whatever, 8.1, whatever, or even Linux. So you have got one operating system already on your machine. Then you want to create more machines on the same either laptop or your desktop or your workstation or server. So what you put a different hypervisor on and above your own operating system that is freely available, is that VirtualBox one, or there are many more, means either purchased or free. So you put that software in your own already OS having machine, and then you create different virtual machine in that VirtualBox setup. So this is called type 1 type 1 kind of virtualization, or that VirtualBox is called type 1 hypervisor. So in that case, as I said, you already have a OS in your machine, operating system, full-fledged operating system in your machine, and then you are putting that hypervisor and then creating different machines in that, within that VirtualBox or that hypervisor. In this configuration, the host OS treats the virtual machines like other applications, and it works like anything, just like another application in your laptop. If you are putting that VirtualBox, so your laptop will consider VirtualBox as another program or another application. Host-based virtualization products are often intended to be used by a single user on workstation class hardware. These are being used for just means trial kind of things, or just your own uses. Normally, we don't go for server class or production class machines to be made on those kind of hypervisors. In type 2 hypervisor architecture, commonly referred to as hypervisor-based virtualization, the virtualization middleware interacts with the computer's physical resources without the need of host operating system. So in case of production servers, or in case of our uh, library servers, so we normally go for type 2 hypervisor architecture, where there is no pre-existing OS on our new machines. We just put a software hypervisor or a virtualization software on it, and then directly creates the guest machines. They are having full-fledged OS, so that those virtual machines interact directly with the physical resources of your physical machine with the help of that hypervisor. So there is no operating system on the physical machine. There is a hypervisor only. There is no full-fledged operating system on the your physical machine, and your guest machines are having different whatever operating system you need, and they are having that operating system. But your bare metal is not having a full-fledged regular operating system. It is having a hypervisor or virtualization software only. So it is a kind of middleware between your guest machines and your physical resources. Such systems are usually intended for use by multiple users with virtual machines accessed over the network. And with the help of network connected with your physical machine, those all guest machines can be accessed by multiple users. Realizing the benefit of this approach requires a considerable amount of resource commitment for both enterprise class server hardware and IT staff. Realizing the full benefit, अगर इसका आपको, if you wish to get the full benefit of this approach, so considerable resource commitment for both enterprise class server hardware and IT staff. So you can optimize the resources. So those were the approaches either type 1 approach or type 2 approach for production class, for optimization of full hardware, whatever you have got resources. So you go for either type 2 or type 1. And then there are three areas that you can cover within that virtualization procedure. So one is server virtualization, is the masking of server resources, including the number of and identity of individual physical servers, processors, and operating systems from server users, increasing resource sharing and utilization and maintaining the capacity to expand later. So server virtualization is one area where what that hypervisor or what you do, that what that virtualization software do is it masks all the physical resources from guests. Guest machines don't know how much physical resources are there. They just use whatever the physical resources are allocated to them. So what it does, server virtualization, if you have got one server, one physical server, two server, three server, four server, or single server, whatever you, infrastructure you have got, it will just pull up all the things, pull up all the resources, whether it be processors, whether it be individual physical servers, number, how many numbers are there. Guest machines need not to bother about all those. So guest machines will be using whatever capacity, whatever RAM, whatever hard disk is being allocated to them. And if it is thick part allocation or thin part allocation, depending on the their allocation and configuration, they will be using server resources, and number of servers and what is the identity of physical servers, they don't bother about that. So this is a complete physical server virtualization. You can do storage virtualization also, that is the pooling of physical storage. Just you store all the physical storage, whatever hard disk, whatever storage capacity you have got, and allocate it to different users. Normally, storage virtualization is commonly used in storage area networks, what we call SANs. Like you partition hard disk makes it easier to manage your files. Just like your hard disk, you have got one physical hard disk in your computer, and what you do, you create a C drive, a D drive, a E drive, and F drive, whatever drives you, because you can handle the your data efficiently. So it is the same, almost similar kind of approach that we go for uh, in case of storage virtualization. We just pull up all the storage and then allocate number of to the machines or to the users as per their need. Network virtualization is a method of combining the available resources in a network by splitting the available bandwidth into channels, each of which is independent from the other. If you have got a 10G card or 1G card, means whenever you go for the purchase of a server, you will have to decide about all those things. And again, you have whatever network infrastructure you must have got, means within your institution or within your library premises. So according to that, you can even split up whatever network bandwidth, whatever network speed you have got into different channels and allocate into different guest machines. So that is called network virtualization. So these are the three areas of virtualization where you can utilize the techniques and the capacities and capabilities of virtualization. Server virtualization is a whole, means where you virtualize almost every resource, server resource. Then simply if you want to uh, virtualize just storage only, or you want to virtualize network only, so there are techniques for those things only. We will go for server virtualization, full server virtualization. So what are the methods? There are 3 4 different established methods, as Ali said in 2018, one of the article. He distinguished between 3 4 kind of server virtualization methods. So one is full virtualization, or FV. So in FV, also called hardware emulation, hypervisor interacts directly with the hardware resources where the VMs or guests coexist on a single physical server. The guests runs independently and are unaware of each other for their existence. This line is important. The guests run independently and are unaware of each other's existence. So what happens in full virtualization? Full virtualization is like that. You divide all the things just exclusively, means mutually exclusively. You pulled up all the resources, all the storage, network, computing resources, and you divided them exclusively. Now, whoever have got whatever number of virtual machines are or guest machines are there, they don't know what other machines are running on the same physical servers. So it is called full virtualization. In full virtualization, guest can run different OSs. In full virtualization, the hypervisor consumption of processing power and resources is high because you have got dedicated resource allocation. So the overall server performance is compromised because the amount of resources allocated to run allocation and VMs become limited because you have means committed that portion of your either computing or your processing or your networking portion, you have committed to that machine. So by that way, that your performance, server performance is somewhat compromised. So in full virtualization, the unmodified guest OS run where the structure of OS and applications are maintained. So means these methods are there, means we don't have to consider that much into nitty gritty of all those things, but still we should know, means which kind of virtualization we are going for. It is full virtualization or para virtualization or OS level. So because of that only we are going through all those things. So the second one is para virtualization. So para virtualization uses hypervisor like full virtualization. There will be a dedicated hypervisor software, but the guests are aware of the existence of each other. Means it is a kind of sharing also. Means within guest also there is a some resource sharing. The para virtualization requires less processing power to manage the guest OSs, and the resource demand for each are known since the whole system works together as a cohesive entity. Means now instead of giving the whole mutually exclusive partitioning, what we did is a thin partitioning. Means the resources are there, same resources are there, same number of guest OSs are there, guest machines are there, but now they are using the resources in a cohesive way. Means whatever, if second machine is having something that is underutilized or unutilized, first can take it up, or hypervisor can allocate it to other machine also. So they all are known about each other's existence, and they are using the same pool of resources. So according to the PV modifies the guest OS with open source characteristics. Means in first case, in full virtualization, they don't interfere with the guest OS. Guest OS remains as it is. But in case of para virtualization, guest OS gets affected by the hypervisor. Hypervisor puts some modifications into the guest OS also. So guest OS don't remain the as it is guest OS as it was in first full para virtualization, but here in para virtualization there is a better resource management or better capacity management than full virtualization because of there is a kind of thin partitioning between thin resource allocation. So those can be shared. OS level virtualization does not require hypervisor at all since it's possible because the OS takes responsibility to perform all functions of a fully virtualized hypervisor. Now there is another concept that OS itself works as a hypervisor. There is nothing separate from the hypervisor and OS. OS itself works as a hypervisor, but the disadvantage of this approach is that all guest machine need to run on a homogeneous OS, a similar kind of OS. So that is the demerit, or that is the issue with this kind of OS level virtualization. And last one is the hardware assisted virtualization. Hardware assisted virtualization is enabled by AMD-V. It is a kind of proprietary thing by now. And Intel technology is commonly in x86 processor architecture. This method provides way for virtualization of CPUs, memories, and IO resources. So those hardware are already pre-configured according to virtualization techniques. So these are the four methods, means different methods that we can choose any one of those, whatever resources we have got, whatever infrastructure we have got, according to that. So these are the approaches. That these are the methods. There were three virtualization areas, and there were two approaches. So after considering all these things, approaches, and then areas, and then server virtualization methods, we can go for practical implementation of that uh, virtualization techniques in your library. So requirements. So for practically implementing that virtualization techniques in library, you simply require whatever server you have already got. Those are enough. Means either servers or workstations. And if you have got additional optional storage system, better. And if there is no, whatever the storage space are with those servers and workstation, that will do the. And on software front, hypervisor or virtualization softwares, there are open source softwares like OpenVZ, FastPC, PurePC, Extreme, commercial software, VMware, virtual server. Yeah, both like VirtualBox or Proxmox, they both are open source also. And then again, there is a subscription to their supports and services and added feature and enhanced and value added device services. So they are working in both the models. Means they are free also and they are paid also. So you can start with the free and then go for paid one or subscription one if you want to develop more applications and you want more functionalities. So they offer both the methods. Means like VMware also it gives supports. So it is commercial. You need to you have to purchase the licenses as per the processors and your own servers, and then you have to subscribe to their support also. So you can have anyone, means either open source, completely open source, or you can go for a open source, and Proxmox is a better solution. In that case, you go for open source, and if you require, if you wish, okay, your establishment that infrastructure is doing good, you can have that support and service of Proxmox, you can take it. So that depends entirely upon you and your management. So this is the type 1 kind of VirtualBox what we you almost we all have either used it or know about it. So that is, it is a VirtualBox. It is simple uh, uh, software. You can download it freely, it is available, and you can put it in your own laptop or PC, and within this you can create number of guest machines. This is a virtual type 1 kind of virtualization. And here you have a pre-existing OS. You have got your own laptop or computer PC working on Windows or Linux or anything, and then within that system you can put this VirtualBox as a program or application, and within this VirtualBox you can create number of guest OS if you wish. So, and this one is type 2 kind of virtualization software, that is Proxmox. So Proxmox is you have to put it on a bare metal, or means a completely new machine without any OS. And after putting this, you can have the number of guest OSs, guest machines, whatever you have, and they will be the full-fledged server, whatever you physical servers you were having, and there is no limitation of servers. So you can create whatever number of servers you want to create on a single physical machine. You can create, you can allocate the resources according to whatever physical resources are available with your machine. So so these are the key property of your virtual machine, whatever guest machines you are going to create. So partitioning: run multiple operating system on a one physical machine, and divide system resources between virtual machines. So the, what will happen, whatever physical resources you have got, they will be divided equally, or what in whatever ratio you will suggest, they will be partitioned and allocated to the guest machines. Isolations provide fault and security isolation at the hardware level, and preserves performance with advanced resource controls. They will be isolated, they will be fault secured, and security isolation at the hardware level. Whatever you wish to put, whatever kind of isolation you want to put, that will be put at the hardware level. Encapsulation save the entire state of a virtual machine to files. You can save the whole state of a machine to a single file, to like a file. Means whatever stage is that, if you want to take a backup or snapshot of that machine, you can take it and save. So move and copy virtual machine as easily as moving and copying files that we talked about earlier also. So moving and copying is that easy with this kind of virtualization and techniques. And hardware independence, there is, as we have discussed it earlier also. So your guest machines will be almost hardware independent. They don't bother on which hardware they are running. If you want to change the host and guest host from 1 to 2, they will be easily moved. Provisioning or migrate any virtual machine to any physical server, they will, unless and until you have got the installation in right way. Server consolidation. Using server virtualization, a company can maximize the use of its server resources and reduce the number of servers required. The result is server consolidation, which improves efficiency and cuts cost. So means if you want to put one or more than one server, if you want to utilize all your machines, you can consolidate all the machines. You add all the machines in a, you put hypervisor in those, and you can pull up all the resources and then allocate the guest machines. So that server consolidation can also be done, and that is the feature. There is one more simple question, mostly it is being confused with. So what is the difference between what I am talking and virtualization and cloud computing? So cloud computing is also there. So cloud computing is not the same thing as virtualization. Rather, it is something you can do using virtualization. You can do cloud computing with the help of virtualization, but virtualization is a technique much older than that cloud computing. Cloud computing is rather a new concept. So you can do cloud computing with the help of virtualization, but virtualization in itself is a completely entirely different technique. So cloud computing describes the delivery of shared computing resources on demand through internet. So they may be using the virtualization technique to share the computing resources through internet, but internet is not always required in case of virtualization technique. If you need it can work on your LAN also, within your library premises also, or within your institutional setup also. So it is not like that your computing or your server resources are getting delivered to you through internet. So this is the basic difference between cloud computing and virtualization. Whether or not you are in the cloud, you can start by virtualizing your servers and then move to cloud computing, or even more agility and increase self-service. If you wish, you can move your virtualized infrastructure to cloud also. You can remove that physical server also, and you get some server space in cloud. So that can be done. Means if you can rent or you can subscribe to any cloud service, and you put your whatever server, physical server you have in library, that too in cloud, you can put it and you can virtualize things there. So that also can also be done. So it is a technique. Basically, virtualization is a technique. With the help of, you can do cloud computing, but there is a basic difference between cloud computing and virtualization. So after doing all the practically implementing, what will happen? You will left with a single ESXi host or single host. ESXi is means you remove it, just host. You will having a single host, and all the applications, whether it be your ILMS or your the repository or your website, or all servers can be created within this single EXI host. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever number of servers you were having in our first slide. So the typical architecture, whatever 1, 2, 3, 4, these all servers are whether it be ILMS server or repository server or backup server or website server, they all have gone into a single server with the help of hypervisor into this host. And if you have got a separate storage device, that will again add it to this host, and through internet or LAN or anything, user will get access to it. So what happened? You removed all those unnecessary or means unutilized or underutilized uh, physical servers and moved all the library applications into a single host machine. And that can be managed through any management server or any PC or any interface. So that can easily be managed through, or user can easily access through internet a single host they are accessing, or the storage system if you got then the storage system, and it is pulling all the resources whatever you can add this storage also with this EXI host and allocate into different servers. So this is the architecture after virtualization. So uh, in conclusions, we can say that better safety and reliability, the safety and disaster recovery from hardware, software failure, and data loss was ensured with high availability features of virtualization software, the RAID configuration of EXI host servers, and storage systems, along with regular backup of data LTO tapes and storage at physically distant location. So definitely, this way you can have a better data safety and reliability, and availability, as we discussed, means you can change the host and guests and without giving any downtime. The provision of uninterrupted power supply and controlled operating temperature and server infrastructure can easily be run as many hours as required or continuously. If you have got that provision in your that setup, that okay, there is a single PCB running, you can run on two ACs only, just one in the day and one in the night. So you can run the server to any number of hours if you wish. Means if you have got the timer switch also, you can make it 24/7 also. So those servers, your machine will be running that way also. And centralized monitoring is there. You can monitor all the machines and servers from a single interface. So there is no need of going to different machines to manage all those things. So there are a few resources that you can read more about this. And practically, when you will go for implementation, definitely you will need a lot more things to know. But since this was a tutorial kind of things, I just wanted to let you introduce to the technology if you are not aware about it, even if you are aware. So if I can add anything. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.